All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And just to kind of reflect on what we talked about. We had our segment one where we talked about WWE SmackDown preview, and in segment two we kind of touched on what happened in the world of Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling, and kind of like because for them they also had Ring of Honor Supercard, and then you have Impact Wrestling's Rebellion coming up at the Palms Casino in Nevada. So we WWE had WrestleMania, and that's kind of like their WrestleMania. So they're going to kind of start, bringing out some pretty hot storylines and promos, as well. You got to still, you can never count the little guy out. Never, ever, ever, not ever. No, I'm just kidding. No, moving on. But anyways, yeah, let's get into this Elite Eight factions here. We still have a couple of teams left over, and we still have one more match in our round one of the Sweet 16. So, let's introduce the Heenan family. Ooh, this is a good one. Obviously you see a lot of great, iconic wrestling there. Um, and oh man, it's gonna be tough to beat because the Heenan family, you had King Kong, Bundy, and then you also had the Blackjacks. You had Paul Ordor Orndorff. Orndorff, Andre the Giant, Ravishing Rick Rude, and Mr. Perfect. So, man, I don't know if anybody can beat those guys. Let's see who they're going to take on. Dun, dun, dun. No, okay. Okay. The Nation of Dom. We are the Nation of Domination. And it's crazy. I think actually Mark Henry joined the crew as well for the Nation of Domination. The Nation of Domination was The Rock, D'Lo Brown, Farouk, and you had Kama Mustafa. These were some pretty bad dudes, some pretty big dudes who's had success in the WWE. Obviously, you still have the most electrifying man in sports entertainment kind of do their thing, but during their tenure, during their time in wrestling, they were just so dominant. I think dominant's the right word. It was dominant to the point where it wasn't even fair. Like where they'd be fighting and then it would just seem kind of like a bloodline and Roman Reigns kind of thing, where they all would help each other win, and essentially like nobody was able to kind of overdo the Nation of Domination. So man, what do we have? But to be honest, and I don't know, I might get a couple of haters for this one, but I think the winner between the Nation of Domination and Heenan family's got to be the Heenan family. Like you can't discredit Andre the Giant, Ravishing Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, the Blackjacks, King Kong Bundy. Like I don't know, these guys were some pretty good dudes. They've all had amazing singles careers. So I think they deserve to be part of the Elite Eight. So yeah, all right. So now we have our Elite Eight. Let's go ahead and get on into our Elite Eight. So our next match, we have round two. We have the bum, 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 the Shield, obviously consisting of Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, and then you have Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, and then you have the Seth freaking Rollins. But much like the Nation of Domination, and much like all these WWE, NWA, WCW, professional wrestling factions, it was hard to beat these guys when these guys were at their best and they were clicking on all cylinders. It was just impossible to defeat them. So it's gonna be kind of hard to defeat the Shield. But their opponents in Elite Eight, we have Evolution. Evolution, you know, defeating the Cabinet in the Sweet 16. But oh man, this is gonna be hard because you had Triple H, Ric Flair, just them themselves, absolutely impressive. Randy Orton still fighting to this day, the youngest World Heavyweight Champion. And then you have Dave Batista. Dave Batista, once when he was feuding with Triple H, and he had a pretty good singles career as well. He was able to keep SmackDown afloat when the brand split. And obviously, he had some pretty good promos with Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. And, he eventually moved on to be in movies. He's Drax from, Guardians of the Galaxy from Marvel. I don't know if anybody knew that. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that by now. But oh man, you have these guys. Oh my god, it's gonna be hard. So we have Evolution. against the Shield. Oh man, this is tough, but ultimately I'm going to have to go with Evolution. Evolution is history. No, I'm just kidding. But Evolution, you have all those guys, and you can't really ignore the dominance they had once. They held all the titles, much like the Bloodline did. They had the tag team championships. It was Randy Orton and Ric Flair, and then you had Triple H as the world's heavyweight champion, and it just I think the reason why this Evolution was so great is because it kicked off a lot of these guys' young careers. Like Triple H was kind of aging a little bit, but he was still in his prime. And then you have Ric Flair, who was over his prime, but he was willing to put over young talent. Then you had people growing into the industry like Batista and Randy Orton. And Batista and Randy Orton were very prominent wrestlers going into, the ruthless aggression era to, kind of the product we have right now. So, you kind of have to respect that. All right, so our next match we have the Hart Foundation. The Hart Foundation, Brian Pillman, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, the British Bulldog, Jim the Nightmare Hart. These guys were dominant as well. Absolutely dominant. Who are they going to fight? Who are they fighting in the Elite Eight? We have D-Generation X. Of course, you can't help but to bring out how Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart during the Attitude Era. Well, I think it was before the Attitude Era. Before the Montreal Screwjob, where these guys didn't really care for each other. These guys generally dislike one another, and it's kind of fitting that they would be in this match against each other in the Elite Eight. Oh God, but I want to pick DX so bad, but I don't want to be biased. Ah, God. If anybody has, any suggestions, any help to put in the tips and donations link, the link is the GSMCpodcast.net. If you want to share your opinions, are going to help me with this difficult decision. God, it's kind of like picking, me as a father to like, oh, my kids are like, oh, who's your favorite kid? And you're like, all you guys are my favorite kids, but like, they know that, you have a favorite kid. Oh, God. All right. You guys gotta love me for not being biased. No, I'm just kidding. The winner out of Degeneration X and the Heart Foundation is going to be the Heart Foundation. The Heart Foundation was, they were the best. They were absolutely the best. They were unbeatable. You had Brett, who was probably one of the best, if not the best, professional wrestler of all time because he did so much with WWF, then WCW, and I don't know. This is like something you cannot just overlook and stuff like that. But anyways. So our next match is going to be the Wyatt family. The Wyatt family, Eric Rowan, Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, Braun Strowman. They were pretty dominant and within themselves, but their opponents are the NWO. Oh man, this is almost not even fair because the NWO is like such a huge, they're such a huge brand and they made such an impact in wrestling. But I'm not trying to discredit and say that the Wyatt family didn't, or obviously, the late great Bray Wyatt, but man, to be honest, guys, this was a toughie, but the winner is between the Wyatt family and NWO is no brainer. We have the NWO here. Love the NWO. They're definitely one of the best factions of all time. So much chaos, so much success, but ultimately, they were able to kind of, they had a little bit more success than the Wyatt family. So, with that being said, oh man, I gotta be honest, my heart is broken. I'm just kidding, though. Next, to kind of cap off the Elite Eight, we have our last match between the Heenan family and the Four Horsemen. Oh man, these factions are very similar. They all had so much success. Oh god, but like that all-star lineup of Andre the Giant, Mr. Perfect. Oh god, that is so hard to pick. But I guess if I had to, I'm gonna go with my boys, the Four Horsemen. Ric Flair, Arn Anderson. Take your pick. So many people joined the Four Horsemen. You had Sting and Sid Vicious, Kurt Hennig. Tully Blue Herd, Ole Anderson, it's these are some G's right here. These, you got to respect the OGs, and I feel like the Four Horsemen did so much for wrestling, helping create this whole ideology of factions and stuff like that. So you kind of had the guys that invented the wheel, so to speak. So it's going to be kind of hard to, fight the Four Horsemen. So, anyways, all right. So let's go ahead and jump into round three here. We have our final four. All right, who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? All right, so we have Evolution. I love Evolution. Obviously, I just got done talking about Evolution. They're amazing. Against the Heart Foundation. Oh God, this is kind of tough because obviously you have Triple H and Ric Flair, and then you have like a Owen Hart, Bret Hart, Brian British Bulldog, but there's just so much damn success. Oh God. And they did so much for Canadian wrestling too. Oh, they're so influential. Obviously, when you think about dominant factions in the WWE, you think about the person who's going to win this match, and it is dun 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 the Hart Foundation. The Hart Foundation moves on, guys. I don't know if y'all are surprised by that by now, but hey, take your pick. All right. On the other side of the bracket, we have the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen and their opponents are the NWO. Ah, it's so hard to count the NWO out. Like, geez Louise. Because there's facts that these guys were absolutely badass. They did whatever the f they wanted, and people loved it. Like, although they were trying to be the heels, you couldn't hate them. You couldn't really hate them because, like, deep down, you're like, oh my God, how can they do that to somebody? But in the back of your mind, you're like, damn, that was pretty cool. I don't know, you can't discredit that. And, oh man, the Four Horsemen, love the guys, good dudes. But I'm going to go ahead and have to stick with my gut on this one. And the winner between the Four Horsemen and NWO is going to be. Bum, 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 bum. The NWO. The NWO come out victorious because they're the N freaking WO. Just a bunch of badasses, man. Just killing it in the wrestling world. Hollywood Hulk Hogan killing it. So we have our final two. Ah, this is gonna be harder than I thought. We we have the Hart Foundation. We have the Hart Foundation against the NWO. Got our final two, and this is the hardest decision of my life. Man, wow. But I love the Hart Foundation because, although they weren't as much as, chaos, filth, and greed kind of mentality of the NWO, these were like, practitioners in the wrestling squared circle. They were great. They were technical wrestlers. They put on good matches. And it wasn't just like them attacking other superstars and spray painting the NWO. But like I said before, they made a lot of influence on future Canadian wrestlers, and that's something that can't be ignored. But then you had the NWO, which is so iconic. They kind of created that, that mentality of factions just running rampant all over their, all over their respective shows. Like without NWO, I know a lot of people, a lot of wrestling fans are probably like, you probably wouldn't have like D Generation X. You probably wouldn't have like D Generation X. Um, in future, time, you wouldn't have um not the blood. You wouldn't have aces and eights of Impact Wrestling. You wouldn't have just basically all the you wouldn't have the Bullet Club. No, I don't think you really would have the Bullet Club. The Bullet Club is kind of like, kind of like that. You wouldn't have the OC. You wouldn't have Judgment Day. You wouldn't have the New Day. Although the New Days, they didn't really like beat the crap out of anybody and like spray painting on their back. But you wouldn't have anything like that. So I guess the winner of the Sweet 16 of wrestling factions is going to be bomb, 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 bomb. I'm still not too sure. No, I'm just kidding. No, hard decision, but we're gonna have to go with the NWO here. Um, they basically were the backbone of WCW, kind of helped them when it comes to the ratings of the Monday Night Wars and stuff like that. And it was actually to a point where it was the NWO were just running absolute rampant all over Nitro and Thursday Thunder. That it was essentially if you weren't with us, you were against us. Kind of like the mentality of the NWO, where you had the NWO against all of WCW. So, congratulations to the NWO who win Eric's Sweet 16 of historical wrestling factions. So, kudos to them. Good for the NWO. All right. So hope you guys liked that segment. If you didn't, or if you have different factions or maybe like a different winner, let me know in the comments section. That'd be pretty cool to talk about something like that. I love wrestling conversations. Love it. All right. And to kind of look forward to our fourth and final segment is our wrestling news roundup. It is Friday. Y'all don't see me for Saturday and Sunday. So, just to kind of give you guys some wrestling news to kind of carry on into the weekend to kind of ponder over. So, hey, don't go anywhere.